The United Kingdom, home of fish and chips, nice warm cups of tea, and cars that drive on the left side of the road. Now, I've done a lot of videos for you guys when it comes to traffic, congestion, roads, driving, all that kind of thing, all centered pretty much on the UK. Because I find this sort of stuff fascinating, and clearly you guys do too. These videos seem to go down really well, so thank you for the support on that. Now, I have spoken about Britain driving on the left-hand side of the road and why Britain drives on the left side of the road. Now, it's not the only country that does so, of course. There's a lot of other examples, particularly those that used to be part of the British Empire back in the day, such as the Republic of Ireland, such as Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India. They all drive on the left-hand side of the road. And there are some other countries that were never part of the empire that also drive on the left, such as Japan and Thailand. But, will the UK ever switch to going on the right hand side of the road? Because it has happened before. Many countries have switched from going to the left to the right, and even some have switched from going on the right to the left. Namibia and Samoa being the two examples of the latter. A lot of countries, though, did used to drive on the left hand side of the road. Now, there's several theories about why this is, and again, I did touch on this on why the UK drives on the left side of the road. But one of the theories I saw floated in the comments was centering around knights and how they would prefer to get off of their horse on the left side, so therefore it made sense to ride their horses on the left side of the road, just to not hit oncoming horse and carts or whatever was going down the road back in the day. So that is a theory, and there's also the theory that most people are right-handed, so that if they were riding and someone was coming up the other way and they wanted to, I don't know, like joust them or whatever, I don't know what they used to do back in the day, knights, but it would make sense to face them on your right side because that is your dominant hand for most people. So there's a few theories floating around like that, and there's lots of evidence to suggest that people going all the way back to even Roman times in mines used to go on the left side of the road. And they've surmised this from things such as mines that used to have, what is it now? So it would be on the right hand side of the road, the tracks from the carts were heavier because those were loaded up with materials from the mine leaving, and on those on the left were lighter because those carts were empty because they were going to the mine to be able to get some new materials. Just things like that. That's a kind of really general summary of why, in general, a lot of countries started driving on the left side of the road. Things started to change eventually, and again, done another video on that. Things started to change, things such as Napoleon imposing right-hand drive, which France had at the time on a lot of European countries. That kind of hastened that, and just in general, countries in general have switched from going to the left to the right. And before anybody says it, because I know a lot of us English people, a lot of us UK people do get very touchy about this. I'm not saying that driving on the right is better. That is not that video. That could be another topic for another day, I'm sure. But I'm not saying that one side is better than the other. I'm just saying that the UK is now in the minority when it comes to driving on the left. But are we ever going to switch? Well, it's never going to happen, in my opinion, for several reasons. Because I've not found any sources for this, but I have seen a few articles online that have stated that the UK has considered driving on the right-hand side of the road in the past, particularly when Sweden switched back in the 1960s, because they used to drive on the left, but their neighbours, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, I mean, if they could be neighbours with themselves, I suppose, but yeah, Norway, Denmark and Finland, they all drove on the right, so they switched to going on the right, which made sense. But just from a logistics point of view, it would be an absolute disaster. I mean, you've got to think about the cost of what this would do. You know, every road sign in the UK, all of the roads in the UK would have to be repositioned, redesigned. I mean, the AA actually calculated that, for example, so for those that don't know, the UK, despite using the metric system like most countries, for some things such as distances on road signs, they're actually still in imperial units, in miles, which is weird because the UK is the only country, as far as I can tell, that uses a hybrid of imperial and metric, which is really strange, but it's just the way it always has been here. Well, in terms of imperial anyway, back in the day. But just switching, for example, the road signs all from miles to kilometres, that would cost about £1 billion. The AA calculated that would take around £750 million. In today's money, it's probably about £1 billion, if not more. And switching from the left to the right-hand side of the road, that would apparently cost the UK economy a minimum of £4 billion. Now, as our government keeps telling us, we're skint, we don't have any money. So whether that's true or not is another matter. But regardless of that, that is a large cost. And you have to think, well, if you're investing that much in doing something, what kind of benefit would you get? Well, as far as I can tell, there would be no benefit. It would just be, everything would be different. And in fact, adjusting to that, because imagine if the government said, all right, so from the 1st of January 2025, we're all going to drive on the right hand side of the road, guys. Good luck. Imagine how much it would take to actually adjust to that. Now, I myself, I have travelled in other countries. I've driven in other countries in Europe where they do drive on the right hand side of the road. And don't get me wrong, you get used to it. You get used to it. It takes about an hour or so, and your brain kind of adjusts. And then when you come back to the UK or whichever country you've come from, which drives on the other side of the road, it's weird adjusting to shifting gears with your left hand again. And let's just touch on the cars as well, because that is something that was also have to change. Yes, of course, left-hand drive cars, which are driven on the right-hand side of the road in countries, they exist. They are plentiful. There are more of them than right-hand drive cars for countries that drive on the left, such as the UK. So getting new cars in that would be ready to drive on the right-hand side of the road would not be any issue at all. If anything, it would make it easier for most car manufacturers, because most of our car manufacturers come from Germany, Italy, France, lots in the UK, of course, but and Japan for that matter too. But probably on the lion's share of things is more towards cars that are coming from countries where they drive on the right. But all the cars on the road now, they're all right-hand drive cars, pretty much. I mean, again, I've seen some nice comments on my videos that say, I've driven a left-hand drive car in the UK for years and years now, and I love it. I don't find it any issue, which I can believe. I mean, I used to drive an absolute POS car, as I used to call it. Loved it, but it was POS, and I'm not talking about point of sale, and you just adapt to things. You just drive around them. So I can totally believe that people would be able to adapt to it. But again, if in the UK's words, because this is another video I've done, and if in UK drivers' words, 1 in 6 are terrible drivers, admit they are, which I believe that real number is a lot higher, then switching sides on the road is just going to cause absolute chaos. Everything's going to have to be redesigned, like I said. Junctions, road signs, road markings, traffic lights, the whole design of cities, it would all have to change. One-way systems, every form, maybe not one-way systems actually, that was the one thing that wouldn't change. But everything would have to change. Everything would have to change, and it's just not worth it. There is such a negligible benefit, and there have been a lot of studies that have actually shown that driving on the left-hand side of the road is better for a few reasons. And you know what? That's going to be a future video. I've decided it while I'm doing this one. Because a lot of people comment saying from the UK saying driving on the left side is the only way to go, and I'm never going to give it up. And it's fair enough. Be protective over that. I'm not making the case to say one is better than the other, but there have been studies that showed that driving on the left is better. And I'm sure there's some studies out there that show that driving on the right is better. It's all about how you interpret the data. But that's the long and short of it, guys. The UK, in my opinion, will never switch to driving on the right-hand side of the road, because one final factor as well is that we have one neighbour in terms of a land border, and that is the Republic of Ireland, which also drives on the left. So why would we ever switch? Why would we ever switch? You've got the Channel Tunnel, of course, that connects us to France, who drive on the right. But that's just coming off of a train. That's easy enough to switch your car around when you go onto the other side of the road. It's not like there's a big bridge between the two of us. So yeah, I have no doubts that the UK will. I don't think we'll ever switch to going on the right, because I don't see any big point in doing so. I really don't. But what are your guys' thoughts on it? Do you think that the UK is right to drive on the left, or do you think it would be right to drive on the right? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, for much more motoring news and analysis just like this, keep it tuned right here to themotoringchronicle.com.